Hi, my name is Cassidy Phillips, founder and CEO of Trigger Point Performance. Years ago, my body started to break down and I was forced to deal with chronic pain and muscular dysfunction. I needed answers as to why my body was breaking down. I saw every specialist I could only to find the same result. I'd have relief for a day or so and that was about it. I needed empowerment. I needed to be able to take care of myself. I started studying muscle, tissue, fiber, structure, and how to regenerate it. I married that with my biomechanical background and I found the answers that I was looking for. Now I want to share those answers with you, a practical style of therapy to be understood by anyone that needs a lifestyle change, a performance enhancement, or just general wellness. Now, I was once told that I could no longer be an athlete, and I don't want you to have to hear those same words. Since that time, I've done ultra marathons, Ironmans, and I will continue the quest to live a healthy lifestyle. Now, what I want you to understand is we all have an athlete within us. What you tolerate, you accept. And you don't have to tolerate poor biomechanics. So during this class, we're going to talk about a couple of different things. First, we're going to talk about the fulcrums and levers of the body and how they move. We're also going to talk about functional opposition or myofascial opposition. Then we're going to talk about MCT, the programming that I created to allow tissue tolerance to occur. Now, MCT is defined as we're going to build compression into the muscle. And as we build that compression into the muscle, we're going to take the distal limb through range of motion and we're going to replicate everyday movements. Now, what's going to happen is we're going to create an internal cross-friction type massage through these patterns of movement. At the end of the day, we're creating a soft tissue solution that you can not only build into your own life, but into your client's life as well. Okay, so let me tell you about the ultimate six. What I've defined are the ultimate 6 areas of the body that I feel influence biomechanics the most. You see, the body is built of fulcrums and levers. Now, those fulcrums and levers are governed by the muscles that surround them. Now, what we're going to look at is this myofascial opposition, myo being what? Muscle, correct. And fascia, we all know what fascia is now, the connective tissue. So the idea of fascia is that fascia is not biased of any one area of your body. Now, what we know most about fascia is that Thomas Myers has created some incredible education with anatomy, trains and lines and slings and all of that. Now, what we hear most in life is plantar fasciitis, or now you hear, of course, fibromyalgia, which are all connective tissue related issues. But you actually have fascia all over your body. I rarely hear anyone say, I have shoulder fasciitis. But you do have fascia in your shoulder and it can become dysfunctional. So as we go through the ultimate 6, we're going to walk through the body so that you can understand, 1, how I believe the body moves, but 2, how the body counteracts weight distribution. You see, most people in life, as they get older, the knees go forward, the butt goes back, the pelvis tilts, and then they kind of shuffle their way through life. Okay, what I'm going to walk you through here is the ultimate 6 areas of the body that I feel influence biomechanics the most. Now, here's the deal. We've got functional opposition, right? We've got myofascial opposition, and then we've got just general weight distribution of the body. If you follow me over here, what we look at is here we've got what we call at Trigger Point the weight of life. Now, most people will say they hold all the stress, tension, and all of that in their upper back area. Now, what I feel is you hold your motion in that area, but where you hold all the tension of your body is right here, the #1 area, the posterior lower leg. That Achilles is so unique in humans because it allows us to stand the body upright. Okay? So the posterior lower leg is going to be vital to keep supple in order to allow that Achilles to be able to counteract, once again, that weight distribution. That's where you hold all the tension in your body. If we're going to hit the posterior lower leg here, then we're going to go in front of the next fulcrum and then we're going to address the quads. Now, once we've addressed that, then we're going to go into the piriformis muscle or the glutes. Once we've done this, we're going to go up above the next fulcrum and we're going to hit the psoas, and that would be #4. Then we're going to go to the opposing side and get number 5, which is the T-spine, and then we're going to hit number 6, which is pec major minor. Now, I'm going to follow me over here to the foot, and what we're going to address here is first this posterior lower leg and why we do it. Now, the reality is, once again, this tendon right here called the Achilles tendon is vital for us to stand up straight, to move forward, to move laterally, and of course to counteract weight distribution. Now, it's going to be very hard if you think about it. If I want to create any kind of weight distribution here with the forefoot and I've got an issue with the Achilles, well, you've got this nice gastroc and then the soleus that comes up underneath the gastroc. But the idea is if I try to create weight distribution here and the Achilles can't handle it, well, of course, the Achilles has the opportunity to pop. In order to have proper dorsiflexion in the foot, well, it's going to be governed by this posterior lower leg. Now, additionally, let's think about the knee in relation to the ankle, relation to the foot, and once again, this posterior lower leg. So if I'm just going to take, here's a fulcrum here, here's a fulcrum here, okay? And you've got all the muscles of the lower leg that are going to govern the way that that body moves, or that fulcrum and lever association moves. So if I bring the knee forward, if I just bring the knee forward into this position here, okay, what's going to happen? Well, if I bring the knee forward and the foot stays in this position, well then the soleus muscle and the gastroc muscles and all those have to lengthen. Well, if they can't lengthen, well, let's just talk about first all the different muscles. You've got your gastroc, you've got your soleus, you've got your posterior tibialis, and then you've got your flexors right next to the posterior tibialis. Now, the big deal here is that all these muscles are going to connect in the bottom of the foot to some degree. Of course, the gastroc and the soleus transfer into the Achilles and then attaches in the back of the calcaneus. But once again, what I want you to focus on, if I'm creating any kind of weight distribution and this knee goes forward and all of these muscles are bound up, if they have no elasticity within that region, well, what's going to happen? As I drive that knee forward, I'm going to pull from the insertion points in the bottom of the foot and or potentially pop the Achilles. Once that happens, then mobility is lost and foot functionality, of course, is going to be challenged. But what's going to happen from there is the muscles in the front of the shin, are then going to be compromised as well because they're always going to be eccentrically loaded. So the number one stop for us to redefine biomechanics of the entire body is first this posterior lower leg. Once we regain dorsiflexion in the foot, then we're going to be able to start to readdress biomechanics in other areas. Because, as I said, if we jump right back over here, if I go after the posterior lower leg here, in this area, if I want to create less of a strain on the quads, well, first I'm going to have to go here because I'm going to reduce the tension on the back of the knee, the anterior tibialis, I'm going to reduce the tension on the front of the knee, then we're going to get more mobility in the foot, and then the quads are going to be able to stand up more upright. So they're not going to be overloaded on a regular basis, but as we go on, let's go on to the quads. So we're talking about the knee. We're talking about the ankle. These fulcrums are governed by the muscles that ultimately control the bony structure. So as I address this area as number one, then I go above. Once again, I go above right here, and I cross over the next fulcrum and I address the quads. Now, what is the importance of addressing the quads? Well, there's a couple of things that we all talk about. The IT band syndrome, right? And we have everybody roll out the IT bands because they're, going to become more supple or they're going to get more pissed off. I mean, what I really want you to look at is how do we create a better association between the fulcrums and the levers? How do I allow the muscles to control every movement? Well, I have to create pliability within those muscles. So what we do for this number one area, we created this MCT programming that allows you to address the muscle tissue there. But we've also created MCT programming, myofascial compression techniques for the quads as well. Now, we go through this process very slowly and methodically. Why? Because we want to address every bit of the muscle. We want to scrape the bugs off of the windshield if you want to create that kind of visual. But the idea here is if I want to create better mobility and movement and load within the quads, all those muscles have to act independent yet as one. I'm going to repeat that. All the muscles have to act independent yet as one. The problem is, based off of dehydration, we already know that the posterior lower leg is going to be challenged, but the quad is going to be challenged as well because we don't have that dorsiflexion of the foot, so the quads have to load and stick into that position because of the butt shifting back. So if the quads are tight, you know, once again, if we're taking this body here or we're taking this body here, well, when the quads are tight here, well, that's what's going to cause the pelvis to tilt. Because if you think about it, if we just strictly take, we're just going to take 2 circles here, right? And if we're looking at, this is your hip and this is your knee, and then we go down into the lower leg. Now, the idea, what we hear a lot of times is the hamstrings really are a culprit problem. So if I'm going to control the hamstrings and the way the hamstrings function, once the quads get tight here, well, that means that all the muscles in this posterior lower upper leg here are going to lengthen past their capacity. So as the quads get tight and the pelvis tilts, well, you get this awkward weight distribution of the upper body, which you see right here. So as, once again, the quads get tight, the pelvis tilts, the upper body goes in front of the torso. So you get this really awkward weight distribution at that point. And the weight distribution can cause all kinds of problems. I mean, if you look at an elderly person and you actually look at the way that they position themselves with a walker, you know, I'm going to tilt to the side here, butt back, pelvis tilted, and that walker sits right out in front of them. And it allows them to shift the butt back and then compromise biomechanics, but what it's also doing is taking away foot functionality yet again. Once again, really emphasizing the reason why we go after that area, the posterior lower leg, number 1. But number 2, the quads just become dysfunctional and they pull the torso forward. If I actually grab my quads and I grab on and pull, this is what's going to happen. Okay, I grab, and just imagine I've got my rectus femoris, my vastus lateralis in my hands here, and I pull. Well, what's going to happen is I'm going to pull my chest into my knees. Okay, we think that most movement should be core to extremity. That's how you're going to drive the most force out of the body. But all I'm talking about is functionality. I need you to stand up straight so that you can move more efficiently through life. You can counteract weight distribution. And when we talk about that myofascial opposition, well, if once again, if this area, the posterior lower leg is influential in the way that the foot is going to work, well, as I come across and I address the quads, and guess what? The quads are going to tell how, of course, the pelvis is going to function. So as we work through that, then we go, okay, well, then I've got to address piriformis or glutes. Now, the piriformis and glutes, I mean, is pretty interesting when you think about the movement patterns of the glutes, because I can raise the leg, externally rotate the leg, and I can show how you cannot really move through that pattern of movement very well without addressing the posterior area, the glutes. Now, piriformis, you know, you're not really going to think about the piriformis raising the knee, but you are going to think about it externally rotating the knee or rotating the leg. So when we're going to address piriformis, there's a couple of different things. What about the sciatic nerve? Does it run through it or around it? Does it run through it or around it? It does one or the other. Okay, so when you address the piriformis muscle with our MCT programming, we're going to take that distal limb through range of motion, and as we do that, what's going to happen? We're going to create additional circulation to the area. And as we create that additional circulation, well, we're also going to optimize the neurological feed to the lower extremities. So if you want to get your foot off the ground faster, well, of course, we're going to address the soleus, we're going to address the quads, and then we're going to go after the piriformis muscle. Now, many people have a lot of problems with the piriformis area, and I think there's a couple of different reasons why. You know, we sit more than anything else in life. I mean, when's the last time you went to the office and you said, my biomechanics are good, I'm hydrated, and I'm ready to work? You probably don't do it. But here's the biggest problem. You sit on that surface level there, the posterior area, and guess what you're doing? You're pulling all the blood and oxygen out of that area. And once you pull all the blood and oxygen out of that area, it starts to stick together. And then let's talk about all the coffee that you drink every day. You know, the coffee is just going to adhere it together even more because it's a diuretic. It has no nutritional value when it comes to hydration. So here's a little key I want you to think about. I want you to think about a mental P chart. A light shade of yellow, you need water. A darker shade of yellow, you need electrolytes. And brown, you might want to go get checked out. I'm serious, something might be really wrong with you. But at the end of the day, if you're going to go through movement patterns every day in your everyday life, we have to create pliability in order for those movements to be as optimal as possible. Sitting in a chair is just like a squat. You don't have any load. What do you call your torso, your shoulders, and your head? That's all load. So you have to address the movement patterns, the functional opposition, and then you have to address the myofascial opposition. So if we're going to address the piriformis muscle, if we're going to go after the piriformis, then what we say is you have to go after a muscle called your psoas. Now here's the deal. Your psoas connects in your groin up to T12 in the middle of your back. So it's going to compress the L4-5 area, your lower back. Okay, so if I compress the L4-5 area, I'm going to compromise, once again, the neurological feed to the lower extremities, but I'm also going to do what? I'm going to influence the piriformis as well, and I'm also going to affect the diaphragm. Now, how am I going to affect the diaphragm? So, once again, if I grab my quads and pull here, well, it puts me in a seated position and my knee is forced to go forward. Now, if I flip it around and I grab my psoas and pull, well, then I'm going to pull kind of my diaphragm down, the pelvis is going to go back, the torso is going to be locked down, and so that L4-5 area is going to be compromised. So as we go in and create our myofascial compression techniques to the psoas, what we're actually going to do is we're going to lengthen the torso, so the shoulder is going to pop up. It's going to really work out well. But also what's going to happen is we're going to make it more efficient for you to breathe. You see, if you can't breathe, you can't perform, nor can you recover. I'm going to repeat that. If you can't breathe, you can't perform, nor can you recover. So I don't care if you're working in an office or working on a football field. That's a reality. The psoas is going to lock up that diaphragm to compromise your ability to breathe. So if we go over here to this visual once again, and we start to talk about this psoas and what it's going to do, it's going to decrease the space. It's going to decrease the space between the chest and the quads. It's going to send the butt back. It's going to really force you to not be able to move core to extremity. So if you want to open up the hips, you're going to have to lengthen the psoas to be able to even open up the hips. Okay? So if we're looking at this load that we carry in our shoulders regardless, and we look at the tension that we hold in the posterior lower leg, well, guess what? If the foot can't create any kind of mobility, and the knee is locked down, and the hip is compromised, then you start to move through that T-spine area. Now, as you move through the T-spine area, what do you create? What happens right there, you guys? If you move through the L4-5 area, you're creating a fulcrum out of that area. You're creating a fulcrum that your hips are supposed to be doing, your pelvis is supposed to be doing, but you're relying on the L4-5 area to be able to deliver that. Now, I believe that a lot of the lower back issues that we have, this is a very simple solution to see if we can't remedy that situation. Does it always remedy the situation? Absolutely not. But at least it's a first line of defense. Let's see if we can go after, once again, even if I'm dealing with the false fulcrum issue in the L4-5 area, if I'm going to go after the soleus first, redefine the dorsiflexion of the foot, I'm going to gain mobility in the knee, I'm going to go up into the hip to allow you to stabilize the hip because the quads don't have to work as hard, and then I'm going to address the psoas muscle and piriformis muscle so that I can stand more upright. So then I can tolerate this emotional connection with my shoulders, this emotion that you carry around on a regular basis. And then ultimately, we're going to be able to allow you to stand in this more upright position. So once again, as this functional opposition goes here, so if I've gone, let's follow the track here. So I've gone posterior lower leg, I've gone quad, I've gone piriformis, I've gone psoas, right? If I go after all of these areas, I'm going to be able to allow you to really manage the weight distribution of the upper body. Okay? That's this right here. I'm going to be able to allow you to manage this because most everything that you do in life is right there. Okay? So if I put weight here, if I put weight right there, what's going to happen? If you cannot lock out your pelvis, if you can't sustain this upright position when you raise the weight in front of the body here, what's the first thing you're going to do? You're going to send the butt back to counteract that weight distribution. Okay, you don't have to have a weight there to do that. Your body's already predisposed to do that. And that's why the older you get, the more compromised your biomechanics get. Now, if I want to lift this weight upright, I load through the heel, right? I can lift up and down all day long through the heel, but if I want to move that weight, I better get up further into the midfoot. But as I get into that midfoot, guess what? I got to rely on the knee and the hip to be able to stabilize the body through that movement. And if I'm relying on those fulcrums and those levers, then the muscular structure has to be able to support it. That's what we all talk about now, tensegrity, right? That's how the body sustains movement for prolonged periods of time. But if the body is not prepared, it will compromise. So with our MCT programming, what we're doing is we're allowing the body to move more efficiently. We're preparing the body to move. We're adding water to the sponge so that movement can be done more efficiently. Okay, so as I look up into here and I have to control this weight distribution here, and we've already defined, you know, if I can't do that, if the psoas is locked down, the L4-5 area here is compromised. But what happens? Let's get a closer look at this. Get a closer look at this and say, okay, well, if I'm looking at this, this would be a macro view. If I'm looking at the torso on its own, and then I go, well, let's talk about false fulcrums again. What happens when you lose mobility in that L4-5 area? What happens? You rely on the upper thoracic area to get that same mobility, right? You move through the upper thoracic area, and guess what happens there? You create another false fulcrum. Once you create that false fulcrum, then it becomes very difficult to breathe efficiently, carry weight distribution in the front of the body, and move your shoulders through regular ranges of motion. So you compromise all of your biomechanics, and here's the kicker, here's the coolest thing. You know, I'm just going to take that line right back here. I'm going to take that and we're going to stop at this T-spine region right there. But here's the coolest part, and you guys can all test this. You can use your fist to elbow, and you can actually position it right on the ankle bone. And if you position just like this, right on the ankle bone to the knee, typically it's the same amount of distance between your knee to your hip. And if you go from your knee to your hip, then you can flip your arm over and measure up, and you'll find that the T-spine region is right there. So maybe we were supposed to have a joint there. I don't know. Maybe if we were all on fours. But if we were all on fours, guess what? The Achilles would have had to have attached right up in here, much like a lot of the animals, a dog or something like that would be, so that you can actually lean the body and the weight distribution over onto all fours. So that's pretty cool, right? I mean, if you think about the way that we're able to counteract weight distribution and move the body and all these different variables, excuse me, what we're going to do here is look at this L4-5 area as one false fulcrum, and then, of course, up into the T-spine as the next false fulcrum. So all we're doing is we're waving our way through the body. Soleus, quad, piriformis, psoas, T-spine, and then where do you think we're going to leave off? Because the ultimate 6 areas of the body is our general approach to the entire body. Once again, I don't care if you're a soccer mom or a football player, we still feel like if you address the ultimate 6 areas of the body, we're going to allow your body to move more efficiently in whatever you want to do. So then we're going to go, our last stop on the ultimate 6 here, right there, pec major minor. Okay? Now let's talk about pec major minor for a minute. Because most of the time when you have neck issues, right, you have shoulder issues, what do you say? Man, if I could get somebody to rub my shoulders, that'd be great, right? When you go see a massage therapist, you say, man, if you could just rub my shoulders, that'd be great. I believe you're going after the emotion, whereas the tension, once again, is in the Achilles. Why don't you go in and say, man, if you could roll out my posterior lower leg, that'd be great. It'd be awesome. If you could just massage that area for me, it'd be great. But once again, our MCT programming allows you to build this into your everyday life on your own. The reality is you brush your teeth every day. We want you to take care of your body every day. The same plaque that builds up on your teeth builds up in your body. Once again, the muscles are to act independent yet as one, but what happens? They all function as one. Okay? So on a team, everybody can't play the same position. Everybody has a role and responsibility on that team. And if they all work together, they can win a game. But if they all do the same thing, the one thing, guess what? They're all going to compromise. The team's not going to win. So as we go into pec major minor here, what we're going to do is we're going to allow the shoulders to rotate back naturally. Now, as the shoulders rotate back naturally, guess what? We're going to be able to allow you to move weight within this area much more efficiently. We're also going to allow you to take weight above head more efficiently as well. But we're also going to increase the ability to breathe. Once again, if you can't breathe, you can't perform, nor can you recover. So if I'm talking about function versus dysfunction, okay? When I'm talking about, this is really the myofascial opposition, okay? This is addressing the fulcrums and levers of the body, okay? But how do we get rid of the dysfunction? How do we get back to this path of least resistance, which is a straight line? How do we create a better opportunity to move core to extremity? I'm going to walk you through it one more time. We're going to take the dysfunction of this guy right here and say, if I want to be able to allow foot functionality to occur, if I want to allow the knee to be upright, if I want to have this ankle and move right here, straight up above, if I want that to occur, you have to have a soft tissue solution for the posterior lower leg. If I want to reduce the strain off of my knee and I want to increase hip mobility, well, of course, I'm going to have to go after the quads as well. Now, do I go after them as independent? Do I just roll out my quads? Absolutely not. You got to go after the posterior lower leg first. So as I address the quads so that the femur can be straight up and down, right? Now I got to worry about the Q angle, the hips rotating outward. So I'm going to address the piriformis. Right? I'm going to allow that external rotation of legs to be more efficient so that I can move loads in a more organic manner, right? So that I can load the ball of my foot. I can engage the glutes. But the idea is, if I want to allow, the body so that I'm not counteracting this weight distribution here, so I have to shift the butt back to be able to do that, well, then I'm going to have to address the psoas at the same time to allow the trunk to come more upright. And as I address that trunk, that psoas, now we're going to go after through the abdominals. We want to address the abdominals as well. But as I create more circulation, pliability, movement through that area, then of course I'm going to go address that T-spine region. As I create that mobility back up in here, then I'm able to open up my shoulders there, get more torso rotation, that transverse movement that we all talk about. Now, once I address that, then of course, I'm going to allow this last fulcrum lever association, that shoulder, to be more efficient. Because I don't care if you're squatting, I don't care if you're rowing, I don't care if you're running, cycling, swimming. If you don't prepare the body to move, if you don't allow these fulcrums and levers to move as efficiently as possible, compromise will occur. It's not a matter of how, it's a matter of when. Hey, okay, now we're in our think tank. We're in the Trigger Point Performance Gym. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually apply what you've just learned on an actual body. So what we're going to think about is our fulcrums and levers, our myofascial opposition, and then our ultimate six. What are the 6 areas of the body that we feel influence biomechanics the most? So just stand there, turn to the side for me here. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go after first, we're going to go after the posterior lower leg. After we do that, we're going to jump above the next fulcrum. We're going to go after the quads. After we go after the quads, then we're going to jump behind that next fulcrum. We're going to get the piriformis. We're going to move up into psoas. We're going to jump up into the T-spine area. Then we're going to get pec major minor. Now, there's a couple of things that I want to remind you about that we went over before. Now, I showed you a technique where you can measure the bony structure, and then we should come right up into the T-spine area, and that's what creates our false fulcrums. So if I go straight from ankle to knee, and he's got a pretty long leg there, there we go, right at the ankle, I flip right over, and then I'm right at the hip. And as I flip right over again, I'm right up underneath that armpit, and I go right back there, and we're right at the T-spine area. Now, there's two other things that I showed you, and I'm just going to give you the visual for it. Just work with me here for a second. If I grab my quads, I'm going to turn to the side. If I grab my quads and pull, that's what happens. Okay? So the butt shifts back, the quads tighten, and I put a lot of stress on the knee and the ankle. Now, additionally, if I grab my psoas and pull, that's what happens. I lock down that torso. So when I lock down the torso, once again, you can't breathe. If you can't breathe, you can't perform, nor can you recover. We're going to compress that L4-5 area, and we're going to look for mobility up into that upper back area, the T-spine area, once again, potentially compromising biomechanics. So we're going to address a soleus area here with the footballer. Now, what I need you to do, first, give me the opposing leg. Go ahead, we're going to position right up on top of the shin. This is an abbreviated programming here. I need 2 rotations to the left for me there, very passively, perfect. Now 2 rotations to the right. Awesome. Now, we bring the foot up so that we can get the rotation of the left foot there. Now we're going to extend the leg. That's perfect, Mark. Now deep breath, release, come up with the knee. Go ahead and relax and back down. There's 1. Let's cut that movement in half and back down. There's 2. 3, deep breath, and up, back down, that's 3. We got 1 more. Deep breath up with the knee, and release and back down, that's 4. Now we're going to rotate the leg inward. We're going to come up with the leg, and I'll pick back up with you in a minute. Now go ahead and stand up for me, Mark. Now what I want you to do here, we're going to look at a couple of different things. Just look straight into the camera, and I want you to hop on this left foot. Just up and down, hop on the left foot. Okay, what I want you to see here is that he's loading the front of the foot. Go ahead and turn to the side, look towards the opposite wall. There you go. Up and down on that left foot. So what I want you to really identify here is look where the heel is off the ground. So we're loading the forefoot there. And I want you to look how we're moving through the knee. Now go ahead and stop. Flip around. Now go ahead and hop on the opposite leg. And first, you can hear more noise, right? You can hear him contacting the ground more. And what you can see here, look at the heel. He's trying to stay up into the forefoot, but what you can see is the heel is dropping onto the floor. What you can also see is the flexion in the knee. So the knee is obviously going to be more challenged through this process. Okay, stop for me there. Turn towards the camera. Just go into a partial squat for me now. And hold it right there. So here's another thing that I want you to identify with. I want you to look at the difference here, the range of motion that he has in his ankle. What we're trying to do is create more mobility in the ankle, the knee, the hip. If you come over to this side, you can see his heel is actually slightly off the ground, but he doesn't have the same mobility, so it's tighter there. Can you feel that? Absolutely. So go ahead and come up for me there. So the idea is, if we work the posterior lower leg, if we lengthen the muscles of the posterior lower leg here, we're going to allow, go ahead and go into that partial squat for me again. We're going to allow the knee to have more mobility because that foot's going to stay on the ground. Now what happens is we're able to load the front of the foot because we're lengthening the muscles in the posterior lower leg here. Okay? So go ahead and stand up for me now. Now here's another interesting thing. What I want you to do, I want you to come around on the block here, turn this way, go ahead and put your foot on top of that block. Okay, now what I want you to do is I want you to go ahead and raise the opposing leg. Just come up like this. And what you'll see here is that he's compressing the front of the block. Now what that means is whenever he moves forward or up, he's going to load the front of the block to be able to allow the body to move more efficiently. I can support here to give you a little more help. And you see that you load, get your hand off me. You see that he loads the front of the foot. Okay, now spin around, let's do the same thing. Go ahead and come up. Notice he doesn't have the same balance. And look how he's all over the block here. He's actually bringing the arms out to gain that balance. Go ahead and come up. And go ahead and relax. And you see that he's loading the back or the heel, the lateral back side of the heel there. So once again, go ahead and hop off. The idea here is that with very limited programming to the posterior lower leg, it's about the programming, the soft tissue solution here. We're going to give you more range of motion with the foot, but what it's going to give you is more stability. Now after we've worked through the football, the posterior lower leg, we're going to jump right up into the quads, okay? Now once again, we're going to be able to drive more force, more power. We're going to give you more control. So the idea is, once again, from that myofascial opposition, we get that posterior, we get that anterior, you're going to get better movement out of this. So what I need you to do, go ahead and get on your left leg, just how we had you before. We had to test it to make sure the camera could cover everything. Okay, so go ahead and get down. All right, so once again, I'm going to take you through partial programming here. So what I need you to do here is take a deep breath for me and release. We've got to lower that leg slightly. So deep breath again and release. And we're going to come up 1 inch, back down ½ inch. That's 1. Deep breath up 1 inch, back down ½ inch. That's 2. Deep breath release up 1 inch, back down ½ inch. That's 3. And deep breath release down 1 inch, back up ½ inch. That's 4. Now cross friction. 1 and 2. Now our knee bends. 1 and 2. We're going to continue to work up 4 times. We'll meet back with you here in 1 minute. Okay, we're just finishing up. We went up rectus femoris. We came back down vastus lateralis. Let's get one more pass. Down 1 inch, back up ½ inch. That's 1. Down 1 inch, back up ½ inch. That's 2. Down 1 inch, back up ½ inch. That's 3. And one more. Down 1 inch, back up ½ inch, that's 4. Cross friction, 1 and 2. Get our knee bends, 1 and 2. Perfect. Go ahead and stand up for me, Mark. Awesome. Okay, so what we're looking at here is how do we affect the fulcrum lever association? Go ahead and look towards camera there. And what I want you to do, come up with that left leg, just up and down, just like this. Rapid firing, up and down. Okay, so a couple of things that I want you to look at here. I want you to look at how the hip moves. I want you to look at how the knee moves, okay? I want you to look at the height, how high is he raising his leg, and then I want you to look at the upper torso region and see how much control is actually occurring in the upper torso. Okay, now as quick as you can, up and down. Okay, so there you see a bit of efficiency. Now, let's go to the opposite side. And let's see what the side is that we haven't worked. Let's look at the range of motion. Go ahead and cup up and down with that leg. First of all, look at you. Instantly see that torso wanting to lean forward there. So he's really lifting from the front of his knee. So he's carrying along with that the tibia-amphibian foot. He's not really using the quad to lift. He's actually using more of the hip and more of the knee. Now, once again, I want you to see the height. Keep your torso controlled. Now come up with it. And you see how much effort he has to put into the process to be able to lift the leg. His leg on this side actually looks heavy. Does it feel heavy?
Absolutely.
Are you breathing harder through that process?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So we'll jump back to the opposing side. Go ahead and come up and down with this leg again. And once again, you see how efficient the movement is here. So once again, just stop for me for a second. If we address the posterior lower leg, then we're going to go to the anterior quad so that we can give the knee more functionality, we can give the ankle more functionality, and of course, we're going to be able to move more efficiently in that core to extremity movement. Just for grins, let's go ahead, scoot back for me right there. Go ahead and go into your squat for me again. Okay, you can instantly see, go ahead and just up and down for me. Look at the way that the leg moves here. Look at the knee to hip association. Look at the range of motion or the dorsiflexion that we have in the foot. Then we'll come on to this side. And you look at how the knee, you can actually, I'd imagine, looking from your view, the knee is tracking a bit awkwardly. He doesn't have the same range of motion in the ankle, so he's really pressing on the lateral side of the foot here. And then the hip, as you can feel, is bound up a bit. You feel that?
Absolutely.
So the idea, once again, you can stop. The idea, once again, is if we want to create a more efficient athlete, we're going to have to look at all of these variables, create this soft tissue solution so that the fulcrums and levers can move more efficiently through those patterns. Now, Once again, we just addressed the quads. We went after rectus femoris, vastus lateralis. We stayed off of the IT band. You can roll it from time to time. You shouldn't beat up your IT band. It's not important. But where we're going to go is piriformis, okay? Now, after we've worked through posterior lower leg, worked through the quads, now we're going after piriformis and glutes, okay? So obviously what we're trying to do is we're trying to get a bit more range of motion in the hips, of course. We're going to open up so that we can move more quarter extremity, and then we're going to open up that neurological feed to the lower extremities. So, Mark, down to the ground for me, please. All right, twist this way towards me. Okay, stop looking at yourself in the camera. You know, anytime you have talent, they typically do that. Okay, so what we're going to do, go ahead and put the ball into that back pocket there. What we're going to do, you just didn't listen to any of the programming before. They typically do that as well. Give me that ball. Okay, so here's the programming here, okay? You're going to lengthen this leg. You're going to, nope. You're going to bend over just like that. You're going to position that ball basically in the back pocket region, okay? Once you've got it in position, we're going to switch stance to the legs here, okay? That's the programming. All right, so now what we're going to do, deep breath, release. We're going to externally rotate. There's one, deep breath, externally rotate. There's two, deep breath and release. There's three. We got one more. Externally rotate, perfect, and back down. There's four. Now we're going to put a slight bend into the leg. We're going to externally rotate. There's one. That's called opening the door. And two. Now you're going to reposition this leg. We're going to push inward. There's one and two. All right, we got one more pass. I'll meet you back here in a minute. All right, perfect. Now, Mark, go ahead and stand up for me. Now, what we're going to do is, once again, we're looking for the yield. How much range of motion have we created to be able to allow the body to move more efficiently? Mark, stand right here for me. I want you to come up with this, step back for me. Come up with the leg, left leg for me there, and I just want you to open the door. Bring the leg outward, okay? And back in. And let's come out with it one more time. And back in. Try this one more time. Up with the knee, externally rotate, and back in, and back down. Okay, so he doesn't have great range of motion. We have increased the range of motion, I would imagine. We'll get to the opposing side. But what I want you to look at the torso, come up with the leg there, and externally rotate. So see, his torso is actually coming with this slightly. What we really want is we want to make sure that the torso is locked down. Let's see on the opposing side what we've just done. So go ahead and come up and externally rotate. And see, instantly you see this is caught right here. The last 10% he doesn't have that same range of motion. Go ahead and come up with it again. Externally rotate. And you see the torso instantly, go ahead and just put both feet on the ground. He's losing his balance. Point here is that what we're trying to do is we're trying to give him greater range of motion. Go ahead, and I just want you to get into a regular squat position. He's challenged with the piriformis in general. Go ahead and come up and down. Okay, so what I want you to see, go ahead and come up, turn to the side, go ahead into that squatting pattern for me there. I want you to look at how the hip actually moves through this process. Go ahead and keep coming up and down. As we do in the gym every day, we're getting a little air squat action in here. But what I want you to see is the range of motion that he has in the hip. He's going 90 degrees or just slightly below, which is great movement. Look how the ankle has more mobility, the knee, the hip is moving nicely. Let's go ahead and check out the opposite side. Swing around. And let's go through that same range of motion. And what you can instantly see is that hip is actually bound up. The hip's bound up. The knee is actually dipping in. The ankle doesn't have the same mobility. So he's actually really controlling the movement on his right side. And on the left side, you just have a bit more freedom to move. Can you feel that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so once again, turn towards the camera. And here's what I want you to do. Go ahead and go into 3 squats for me. I want you to just really visualize that movement. Okay, and now what I'd like you to do, take a step back for me here. I just want you to run in place. Just run in place. What you can see now is you can see how the left side tracks nice and efficiently, and he's moving way too forward. Come on back. All right, he's a toe runner, but you can see on the opposing side how on the right side he's really controlling the movement, and he's really just freely moving through the running stride. I know it's a bit contrived. Go ahead and stand up. Contrived because we're running in place. But the idea here, once again, if you look at this shoulder and you can see the shoulder rotating back, you can look at the length of the torso, you can look how the left side of the body is moving more efficiently. That's really what we're trying to capitalize on right now. Now we've worked through, once again, stand for me here, Mark. What we've done is we've gone through the posterior lower leg, we've gone through the quad, we've addressed the piriformis, now we're going up into psoas. Okay, once again, psoas connects in your groin up to T12 in the middle of your back. It's going to compromise the diaphragm. It can have the opportunity to compress the L4-5 area. It can lock up the hips so you can't move core to extremity. It really is one of those things that we really don't focus on enough. So the first thing that I want you to do, Mark, just put your arms down to the side for me here. The first thing that you always want to do before working through this area is you want to take the ball and just go ahead and relax. Just relax. And we roll through the area. What we're doing is just making sure there's no adhesions. You got two main arteries that runs right through there. So we just loosen them up. All right? So now get down on the ground for me here. Okay, so we get in our prone position. Now what I want you to do, position the ball just off of the belly button. It's just off of the belly button, almost on top of the belly button, okay? So go ahead and relax into the ground. I'm sure the floor is clean. Okay, go ahead and all the way down. Relax all the way into the floor, okay? So now what we're gonna do, okay, so take a deep breath, release, come up with upper body. Can you feel that? Deep, deep breath right there. Release and go back down into the ground. That's pass number one. Deep breath, release, come up with the upper body. Perfect. Hold it right up there. Deep, deep breath. Release. Plant your forearms into the ground for me. Forearms into the ground. Pull your body forward. Pull your body forward. Deep, deep, deep breath. Release, and back down. There's two. Okay, here's our third pass. Just really, when you do this, put your arms in that position, okay? Deep, deep breath, release, come up with the upper body. Perfect. Deep, deep breath, release, pull the arms forward. Awesome. And then deep, deep breath, release, and we're going to raise the same side leg. We're going to put the whole body into traction there. Deep, deep breath, release all the oxygen out of the lungs, and relax into the ground. Awesome. We got one more pass, so I will see you guys in 1 minute. All right, perfect. Mark, go ahead and stand up for me now. All right, so let's see. Go ahead and stand on this side for me. Let's see what we've done here first. What I want you to do, Mark, take a step back for me. Go ahead and come up and down with the leg for me, just as we did before. Up and down. And I want you to look at the logo. Look at the logo on his shirt and look at how high his knee comes up, okay? That's a great measure of success. Okay, go ahead and stop for me there for a second. What I want you to look at, look how this shoulder is rotated back. Okay, we've actually lengthened the torso, rotated this shoulder back, and then we've got greater range of motion in the hip, so then we're going to be able to move more organically. We're going to allow the muscles to take us through this movement versus just the fulcrums and levers. Okay, so go ahead and come up and down with that leg again for me. Up and down. Okay, look at the range of motion. And what I want you to understand, look at the effortless movement. Awesome. Now let's go to the opposite side. And first what I want you to see, look at this shoulder. Look at how the fabric grips right here. Okay, so this is compromised, and so the torso is compromised, and the knee and the ankle, watch this, come up and down with that knee, and look at how much effort goes into the movement as he's raising the leg. So what does that mean? Heart rate increases, and what we say, performance decreases. So I could come and hit him on the back as he's moving through that movement, and I could have him topple over. So if you play any kind of field sports, obviously addressing your psoas is important. So you feel that compromise there. Go ahead and come up with this one more time. I want to show them. Turn to the side for me, actually. Okay, come up and down with the knee there. Nope, opposite one. Okay, so what I want you to see here, look at the hip and look at the range of motion he gets out of the hip, okay? Look at the distance that he covers with what we say the organic movement, the effortless movement. Okay, now spin to the opposite side. Come up with this side. And instantly you see, go ahead and scoot that arm back slightly so that we can see. Go ahead and come up. Look at the hip here. Look how bound up that hip is. And what we'll do is I'll face the camera here in a minute and show you that same movement. But you can see through that movement pattern that torso wants to come forward And so turn towards the camera, and once again, I'm going to take you back through this one more time, up and down with this leg. Okay, so we've got the freedom of movement in the hip, the knees moving nice, the ankles moving nice, the torso is stable. Now we come on to this side, and instantly you see he's really lifting through his hip. So you see how bound up his hip is. You see how much effort he's having to put into it. It's almost like he's moving in slow motion. So the ankle and the knee are going to be traumatized as he lands on the ground because he's really controlling the movement. So there's an opportunity for this eccentric loading as the foot hits the ground. So therefore, the heart rate is going to increase and the performance is going to decrease, right?
Absolutely.
So now let's go into a squat once again. Just a nice even squat. And just up and down. And once again, what you can see here is the freedom of movement on the left side of the body and really compromise movement. Just turn to the back for us. Turn to the back and go through that squat just like that. And now you can see the posterior side, and you can see how on the left side there's a bit more glute activation. On that right side, you know, he's really just trying to structure that movement. He's trying to control that movement through the process, and then in the end, you know, the body's going to fatigue that much more fast. Okay. Flip around for me. So the big deal here, once again, if we're going to address the psoas area, we're going to lengthen the torso, we're going to stabilize the torso, we're going to allow more transverse movement to occur, we're going to allow the shoulder, this one's rotated forward, this back. So now what we're going to do, if we've addressed psoas, we're going to go into the T-spine and free up the upper torso even more. So now what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and work through the T-spine region. But before we get there, look towards the camera. Once again, what we've done is we worked through the posterior lower leg, jumped up above the next fulcrum. We addressed the quads. We addressed the piriformis. We addressed the psoas. We're allowing that myofascial opposition to be more efficient. We're addressing the fulcrums and levers so that the body can move independent, yet as one. That's how the muscles are supposed to move, right? And now we got to go up into this T-spine region. So what we typically do, you go right behind the sternum. If I take this, flip around for me. This is right where we want the TP2 ball to be, okay? So right in this area. You can move it around slightly, but at the end of the day, we really want to get right up into here. Okay, go ahead and go down onto the ground for me there. I'm going to position the block up underneath your head. Go ahead and come back. All right, so now I'm going to position right there. Go ahead and come back for me. Okay, so what we're going to do here is the progression and regression, bring the hips off the ground. That's the progression, the regression. Go ahead and go back down. And that's the regression. We're going to go ahead and keep the hips on the ground for this, okay? So first, Mark, come up with the arms straight up into the sky. Straight up, okay. Deep breath. Release, externally rotate. Deep breath, release, cross over the body, hug yourself. Deep breath, release, and pivot. So you're going to shake on top of the ball there. Deep breath, release, and pivot. Nice. And deep breath, and raise the arms. We've got a couple more passes here. We'll pick you guys back up here in a minute. And let's look at how he's moving now. So what I want you to do is go ahead and stand right here. And just go ahead and bring the shoulders back. And forward, and back, and forward. So greater range of motion, just push through here. So open up the chest, there, and back down, okay? Open up the chest, and back down. Okay, one of the cool things is, go ahead and turn around for me real quick. One of the cool things that you can see here is look at the shoulder blade. The shoulder blade seeds nicely into the back here, and you can see how we're way off. We're way off the bony structure here. So what happens is that means that the shoulder is entirely rotated forward. Now we've given more mobility here, but you're going to see greater benefit obviously on this side than you're going to see on this side. Okay, so go ahead and turn around for me here. Okay, so what we're going to look at here is we've got greater range of motion in the arm. We've got greater trunk stability. Take a step back for me here. Go ahead and come up and down with that leg, up and down, up and down. And so we're going to analyze that movement once again. We're going to see how freely that side of the body's moving. Let's go ahead and go to the opposite side, up and down. You see how much effort he's putting into this side. And now let's go into your squat. You can see the freedom of movement that he has in his squat. So the idea here, once again, is we want to allow the body to move as efficiently as possible. And what's going to happen here is after we open up the T-spine region, we're going to allow the trunk to be able to breathe more efficiently, of course. And now let's just go ahead and do a favor for me. Rotate this side. Nope. Keep your feet forward. Rotate. Just rotate your shoulders towards me. Okay. So you see that range of motion, and now rotate the opposite direction. And you see how he's got greater range of motion there. Obviously, if we open up the T-spine region, we're going to give you better rotation, better transverse movement. So once again, you move to this side, you see how much range of motion he has here, and you rotate to this side, and you see how we're locked up right there. So once again, if we want the body to really activate as a unit, we want the upper and lower body to communicate, we're going to address that psoas, of course, because they connect the two, but we're also going to have to address that T-spine region so that we can really have that transverse movement control, but we're also going to make the breathing that much more efficient. All right, so now let's recap once again. We're talking about myofascial opposition. We're talking about fulcrums and levers. We're talking about efficiency in movement. We've addressed the posterior lower leg. We've addressed the quads, the piriformis, the psoas, the T-spine region, and now we're going to address pec major minor because shoulder rotation is obviously important in no matter what sport that you do. And so what we really want to do, we've really opened them up quite a bit through this whole process, but where we're going to address pec major minor, here's a good party trick for you. In order to understand really where you want to be is I can actually push, see how I get control of his arm instantaneously. So that's a great party trick if you want to try it out. But what we're going to do here, the best way to really understand where we want to address, you outreach the arm here. We're going to soft elbow, bend it in, right there. That's where we want the ball, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to position the ball right there. Now, because he's got so much muscle mass, no, I mean really he does. Underneath his black shirt, he's bound with muscle. What we're going to do is we're going to put the block right up on top. So depending upon the muscle mass, you know, if you have a lot of muscle mass, go ahead and utilize the block because it allows us to gain more leverage. And so what you're going to do is put the opposite hand on top. Now, here's the idea. As we raise the elbows, we put traction into the pec major minor. So what we're going to do is deep breath, release, and go ahead and pivot. Pivot the elbows, perfect. Notice we're not rolling. Deep breath, release, and pivot. Perfect. Now deep breath, release, and pull down towards the armpit. Nice. Deep breath, release, pull down towards the armpit. Perfect. We got a few more passes of this. We'll check back here with you in a minute. Awesome. So go ahead and let me see the ball. Let me see the block. I'm going to set it down back here. Perfect. So now let's see what we've done. First, go rotate the shoulder back here. Just rotate this shoulder, not both, just this one. Rotate it back. Let's look at what the trunk's doing here. Just rotate it, there we go, nice. Okay, so what I want you to see is look at what the trunk's doing. Look at the freedom of the shoulder here. Now as we come over on this side, go ahead and rotate this one back. Notice how we've got a lot more trunk movement through this process. Look, he's dipping his head down as he tries to go through that greater range of motion. So the idea is he's a control freak. So he's trying to duplicate the same movement on the opposing side as he's done on the side that has freedom of movement. Now there's a big thing that I want you to think about there. If you force the movement, you have more opportunity for injury. If you force the movement, you have more opportunity for injury. I want you to think about that, okay? So if there's more restriction, you force that range of movement, the opportunity for injury occurs. Okay, so what I want you to do here, so go ahead and turn towards me right there. I want you to come up with that left arm. Just come up and I want you to fight me right here. Fight me. You see the stability that he has on this side. Now I'm going to go to the outside. Fight me here. Okay? Look at the way that his head looks, his torso looks. It's great. Okay? Great structural integrity on that side. Now come up with this side. Okay, fight me here. Look how he positions. Look, I've got control of his upper torso through this whole process. He like grits his teeth. He's ready to fight, but he has no ability to do so. Why? Because the fulcrum is in front of the torso. Therefore, he has no leverage. Go ahead and come up with it again. And I'm going to push you this way. Once again, you've got nothing, right? You could try, but I rip your shoulder off. So what I'm going to do, keep your arms straight, push back. Let me push back, your shoulder back. Shift your shoulder back. There. Just as if you were going to do a bench press. So now hold it right there. Fight me here. Notice how you have that structural integrity. So the idea here is that we're creating greater range of motion, but we're creating better structural integrity through that process. So now take a step back because we got to keep your hands in camera if we can. Go ahead and raise this arm above your head and back down. Okay? Go ahead and do it again. Look at the range of motion that we have here. Back down and back down. Turn to the side. Go ahead and do it again. Look at the ear. The ear is exposed as he goes overhead. Now turn towards me. Now let's take this one through the same range of motion. Up. Whoop. Where's the ear? You can't see the ear. Why? Because the shoulder is all rotated forward. Go up with it again. You see how all of this is locked down. So if you turn towards this way, go ahead and come up and down with that arm again. Bam. Gets locked right there. Go ahead and do it again. Bam, right there. So here's the idea. If he had load above his head through this movement, he'd force it, and then we'd really jeopardize the shoulder, we'd jeopardize the T-spine region, the psoas would be overactive, and then the core to extremity movement would be compromised. So the idea here, guys, is very simple. If we want to move the body in a more efficient, more organic manner, if we want to allow the myofascial opposition to be as optimal as possible, if we want those fulcrums and levers of your body to move independent yet as one so that the muscles control the joints, if you want more joint mobility, freedom of movement, you're going to have to address the soft tissue solutions, okay? You're going to have to address the muscles that control the joints. So at the end of the day, do you feel more independent on that left side of your body?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. The right side is bound up. Yeah, so come back over here for me one more time. I want you to see this. I want you to visualize it, because if we can allow this side of the body to move more efficiently, obviously we're going to make him do the opposing side. We're going to make him do the right side. What you do to one side of the body, you also do to the other. But the ultimate 6 areas of the body truly define the way that your body is going to move. And I believe if you build this into your everyday practice, you're going to allow your athletes to move more freely. You're going to allow yourself to move more freely. We're going to reduce injuries, and we're going to allow your clients to perform at an optimal level. Now, we've got more education at tptherapy.com/education. Go there. We've got classes around the world. I thank you. I thank Impact Summit and Todd Durkin for allowing us to take part in this summit. This was a great opportunity, Mark. I'm glad we had the time to do this together. I'll see you next time. I'm Cassidy Phillips, and I'm out.